Hello, Professor Uden. My name is Fox McMahon Gallela, and today we'll be taking a deep dive into the movie Slacker. We'll be dissecting Slacker under the contents in Chapter 3, documentary, experimental, and animated movies. The topics of discussion are listed as summary of Slacker, defining narrative, Slacker's narrative, documentary movies, the 4 types of documentary, experimental films, and a love letter to Austin. Summary of Slacker. Slacker is an experimental American comedy directed and produced by Richard Linklater in 1990. Filmed in Austin, Texas, it is a non-plot-driven film that depicts scenes of misfit local characters talking and or walking for a few minutes until the camera catches and follows other characters. The film's timeline follows a single day in coffee shops, bars, houses, bookstores, and plainly on the street. The characters' conversations are rooted heavily and represent the 90s renaissance of conspiracy, resistance to the government, and other theories and ideas of feminism, anarchism, and class, shared by word of mouth, books, and the new invention of the internet. The characters seem to be connected loosely between these ideas because of their misfit lifestyle. Defining narrative. A narrative is a story, the system in a work of media that structures a story, the timeline of events that create and organize a narrative. In this case, we're looking at a movie and what methods the director uses to create an idea of a narrative, especially in a very non-traditional, seemingly unconnected way. Slacker starts with a man at a bus stop, getting in a cab and going on about his dream to his taxi driver that occasionally darts his eyes at his rearview mirror at him but says nothing, even as the man arrives at his destination and pays the driver. There are lots of scenes like this in Slacker, where one character is talking another one's ear off who's uninterested and basically unresponsive the whole time, but saving face until they can leave. Another good example of this is when a man with a backpack is followed out of a coffee shop after he has overheard that his friend was missing by a man who starts an extremely long monologue about the government wiping people's memories, anti-gravity technology, and even global warming, which surprised me at first because it feels like a hot topic now, and I didn't realize it would even be brought up back then. He basically hits all the classic conspiracy theory points that someone can hear, I think relating to the audience who have probably heard these things before, believed it themselves, or even been in the same situation where a stranger has confided in you in a conspiracy theory confidant in the street in Austin, Texas, which I know I have. Slacker's narrative. Slacker is a fiction movie comedically based on real people, events, and places. Untraditional. There is no main character, no goal, and characters are sometimes not directly connected to each other than mere proximity. This created a feeling of unease in me at first because of how loose and how unfamiliar these characters felt. Like just as one appeared and I thought I knew what was happening, the focus would be shifted onto another person or group of people discussing a similar or wildly different but interesting subject, like the man and his daughter walking back to their house to find the door ajar and a man trying to rob them with a gun, only for the man to react by very calmly addressing him and stringing him into a conversation on anarchist theory and taking him on a walk. Scenes like these show how much of a comedy Slacker is, even if a non-traditional one at that. Chronological, sequential timeline of events. Slacker's timeline is chronological, throughout one day and night, following lower-class, young misfit people all around Austin, Texas. This movie's narrative is a spotlight onto local people in Austin that fall under a subgenre of non-mainstream people dealing with unemployment, social and political marginalization, and general outcastedness. Slacker isn't based on a single story, but an overall narrative of these ideas, as one scene of characters split off into a new one just as they passed each other on the street or started a conversation somewhere. Overall, Slacker's narrative is not conventional, but has a sequential narrative that tells a story about unconnected characters in Austin, Texas to relate to the audience in a comedic way, about pop culture subgenres in the 1990s. Documentary movies. Documentaries are nonfiction films that are made to show real people, events, and places for the sake of education or analysis. Even though documentaries are nonfiction, they are crafted in ways to produce a storytelling narrative on screen and even sometimes create scripts or reenact events on camera, using camera angles and music to make it more interesting to the audience. Documentaries are broken up into 4 approaches. Number 1. The 4 types of documentary. Documentaries are broken up into 4 approaches. Number 1, factual. Number 2, instructional. Number 3, persuasive. And number 4, propaganda. Factual documentaries are made to present real places and people in clear ways to inform them, the audience, on the subject. Instructional documentaries are made to teach the audience something like cooking, programming, yoga, or like many how-to videos on YouTube. Persuasive documentaries were originally made to address social injustice. Propaganda documentaries are made by governments with particularly swayed and distorted information to control and persuade its people to promote political interests. Slacker does not fall under any of these documentary-style films because it is a fiction work, but could be seen as observational documentary by someone who thought the characters were real due to its style of cinematography and use of no music, and point-to-point observations of people in everyday life. The camera makes the audience feel as if they are an invisible viewer to the characters carrying on their everyday lives, and as a spectacle and documented way of living and thinking. This observational documentary style can be especially seen in the very last cut of the movie. It is the first time we cut through a chunk of time. Following a party at 3 a.m., we are cut to the morning where a group of people are holding a camera shakily recording their venture to Mount Bonnell, where they are playing and laughing to whimsical music in the background. This feels more like a real documentary because it is one person holding a camera and we are not made to think that it is not there, as the other people are interacting with it by looking into it and not holding it steadily by running or dropping it. Experimental films. Experimental films can describe any film that does not fit the traditional expectation of how a film is made, written, cast, directed, shot, and advertised to the public. It is a difficult type of film to describe due to its interpretive nature and broad umbrella of films that could fall under this category. According to the film scholar Fred Camper, there are 6 points that categorize a film as experimental. The films are non-commercial and made by a single group of people/person with a low budget and not made for the intent of making a lot of money. Slacker was extremely non-commercial and made on a low budget. You can tell by the audio quality and in the fact that there is no set building because the documentary style all around the city of Austin. It was not made to benefit a company, but to appeal to local Austinites, drifters, misfits, and slackers. Personal. Experimental films reflect the desires, perspectives, and the worldview of the director. Slacker was directed by Richard Linklater, who was born in Houston, Texas, and lived in Austin. He created arguably the 2 most popular cult films in Austin, based on Austin, like Slacker and Dazed and Confused, made in 1993, based on Austin in the 70s, and the movie Boyhood in 2014. Richard has his own non-mainstream perspective of Austin and its culture that is conveyed in the movie. Does not comfort the traditional expectations of film. Slacker is certainly not comforting the basic goal-driven main character narrative that we all know, but instead works to provide comedic instances and interactions between characters that are loosely based on real life in Austin in the 90s. exploits the possibilities of cinema. Most films are made to make you forget you are watching a movie and pull you deep into an interesting narrative. Experimental films seek to produce a narrative with certain techniques, camera angles, music, characters, plots, and execution to remind you that it is a movie. Even though Slacker feels much like real-life observational telling of an era, it is also constantly illustrating scenes that are so quirky and so awkward that it doesn't feel real at all. For example, in one scene, a man goes into a coffee shop and pays for a coffee, sits down, and a man behind him tells him to stop following him. And a woman at the counter repeats to him, "You should quit traumatizing women with sexual intercourse." All the while, the store worker does not bat an eye and tells him to keep it down over here. The man seems so confused and shocked, he drinks his coffee quickly and leaves. Being that Slacker is a comedy, its main job is to make us laugh by putting the characters into absurd and outlandish situations such as these, which remind us that it is a movie. Experimental films critique culture and media. A movie that intentionally frustrates the audience on what a movie should be and comments upon pop culture and media. Slacker does this well because the movie is simultaneously for and to make fun of the slacker. For instance, the famous Madonna pap smear scene. A man is walking down the street when he runs into an old friend. Their conversation is awkwardly paced and filled with almost nothing of substance. When asked what he has been up to, he said, "I don't know," portraying him like many of the other characters in the movie as slackers with no goal but to just exist. When a woman steps into the scene presenting a pap smear from Madonna and asking if he would want to buy it, it is never revealed how much she is selling it for, but picks on again the idea of the unemployed slacker trying to sell more likely fake and absurd items, rather than having a steady job. The movie Slacker also comments on the social political mindset of people at the time, such as defiance of the government and conspiracy. Slacker, or inviting individual interpretation. Experimental films resist traditional meaning and substance that a movie can bring to the viewer. Slacker leaves much up to the interpretation due to its lack of plot and commentary on these ideas people have shared at the time. Slacker is considered an experimental film because it challenges what we usually envision a movie with a narrative to be. Overview. Slacker is a movie directed and produced by Richard Linklater in 1990. After its release, it gained a cult following because of its unique, non-plot-driven comedic commentary on Austin in the 1990s. It sports awkward and quirky interactions between characters throughout a single day along many famous spots in Austin. In terms of documentary movies, it is a work of fiction, but could be seen as a hybrid observational documentary. And in terms of experimental films, Slacker is considered an experimental film that does not follow the traditional narrative style of most films. A love letter to Austin. At the end of the day, Slacker is a love letter to Austin, Texas, providing a look into its weird culture and residents in a comedic and 90s style take of the world. Overall, I really enjoyed this film and believe it approaches ideas of class and politics well in Texas in the 1990s, and also very interestingly.